Competency in Arizona. Real estate is not only defined by knowledge and experience, but also by a licensee's ability to apply the state's administrative rules correctly in everyday practice. The Arizona Administrative Code, AAC, under Title IV, Chapter 28, sets forth detailed rules that govern how real estate professionals conduct themselves in transactions. Four of the most significant rules: R4-28-802, R4-28-1102, R4-28-1101J, and R4-28-1101K establish standards for communication, negotiation, possession, and client protection. Together, these provisions ensure that every transaction in Arizona is handled with honesty, fairness, and legal precision, reinforcing the broader mandate of R4-28-1101H, requiring competence in all professional activities. 4-28-802, Conduct of Negotiations. This rule outlines the ethical and procedural expectations for licensees during the negotiation of real estate transactions. It requires that all negotiations be conducted through the principal's broker or with the broker's consent. This is a fundamental component of professional competency, as it ensures that agents respect agency relationships and avoid unauthorized dealings. For example, a buyer's agent cannot directly negotiate with the seller if that seller is represented by another broker, unless consent is first obtained. Doing so would violate the principle of professional respect between licensees and could lead to sanctions under ARS Section 32-2153A23 for interfering with another licensee's exclusive representation agreement. An example of this rule in practice would be a listing agent receiving a call from a buyer directly wishing to negotiate terms. The competent agent should immediately redirect that communication through the buyer's broker to maintain compliance. This preserves ethical boundaries and prevents potential claims of misrepresentation or breach of fiduciary duty. R4-28-1102, Negotiations with a Principal. This rule complements R4-28-802 by providing a narrow exception. A licensee may negotiate directly with a principal, the buyer, or seller, only if the other broker has provided written consent, or if the principal initiates the contact without solicitation. However, even when a principal contacts a licensee directly, the licensee must notify the principal's broker before proceeding with discussions. This regulation upholds professional integrity and ensures all parties remain informed. For example, if a seller with an exclusive listing agreement contacts a buyer's agent directly to discuss price adjustments, that agent must inform the listing broker immediately before further communication occurs. A failure to do so may result in disciplinary action for unprofessional conduct or unauthorized negotiation. This rule reflects the larger concept of reasonable supervision and transparency, essential elements of competency that protect clients and maintain trust among licensees. R4-28-1101J Prohibition against permitting occupancy before closing. Competent licensees understand the critical importance of possession and occupancy rules. R4-28-1101J prohibits any licensee from permitting a buyer to occupy a property or a seller to remain in possession after closing without written authorization from all parties. This provision protects both buyers and sellers from legal and financial liability. For instance, if a buyer moves into a property before closing and financing later falls through, both the seller and the broker could face legal complications. Similarly, allowing a seller to remain after closing without a properly executed post-possession agreement could lead to eviction issues or insurance disputes. Competency in this context means recognizing that any pre- or post-possession arrangement must be documented in writing, approved by all parties, and often reviewed by legal counsel. The Arizona Association of Realtors provides standard forms, such as the pre-possession agreement and post-possession agreement, which set forth conditions for insurance, maintenance, utilities, and risk of loss. A competent licensee must ensure these are used correctly and reviewed by the broker before execution. R4-28-1101K- recommending professional assistance. Finally, R4-28-1101K emphasizes the duty of care by requiring licensees to recommend that clients seek professional advice when issues arise outside the agent's area of expertise. This rule directly ties into R4-28-1101H and R4-28-1101I by recognizing that competence includes knowing when to defer to experts. For example, if a buyer expresses concern about potential foundation cracks, the licensee should recommend a structural engineer or home inspector, rather than attempting to interpret the condition themselves. Similarly, if a property lies within a floodplain, the licensee should suggest consulting the county flood control district or a surveyor. This rule reinforces that a competent licensee protects the client's interests by promoting informed decision-making, not by offering unqualified opinions. A failure to make such referrals can result in liability for negligence if the client suffers damages due to undisclosed or misunderstood conditions. Bringing it all together, each of these rules, R4-28-802, R4-28-1102, R4-28-1101J, and R4-28-1101K works together to form the backbone of professional practice in Arizona real estate. They define how licensees should communicate, negotiate, and guide clients through transactions while maintaining ethical and legal boundaries. Competency, therefore, is not simply an internal skill. It is demonstrated through adherence to these laws in daily practice. A licensee who understands and applies these rules effectively reduces risk, upholds public confidence, and embodies the high standards expected by ADRE and the Arizona public. Review summary. Professional competency is measured not only by what a licensee knows, but also by how they apply that knowledge within the framework of Arizona law. The rules covered in this section safeguard all participants in a transaction by ensuring clear communication, ethical negotiation, and responsible client representation. R4-28-802 and R4-28-1102 govern the conduct of negotiations and respect for brokerage relationships. R4-28-1101J ensures that possession occurs only under lawful and documented conditions, while R4-28-1101K reminds licensees to seek professional input when specialized expertise is required. Together, these provisions illustrate that competency is the intersection of law, ethics, and judgment. Discussion prompts. Why is it important to conduct all negotiations through a broker as required by R4-28-802? Answer. It ensures respect for agency relationships, prevents unauthorized dealings, and maintains accountability between licensees. How does R4-28-1101J protect both buyers and sellers in a real estate transaction? Answer. It prevents premature possession, which could expose both parties to legal disputes, financial risk, or liability if the transaction fails to close. When should a licensee apply R4-28-1101K and refer a client to another professional? Answer. Whenever the issue involves specialized knowledge outside the agent's expertise, such as structural, legal, or environmental concerns. Closing remarks. The true measure of competency in Arizona real estate lies in the consistent application of law, ethics, and professional standards. These administrative rules are not arbitrary. They were designed to prevent confusion, conflict, and liability. When licensees respect the structure provided by R4-2 8-802, R4-2 8-1102, R4-2 8-1101J, and R4-2 8-1101K, they reinforce public trust and demonstrate mastery of their professional responsibilities. Competence is not simply knowing the law, it is living it in practice. Each conversation, contract, and client interaction is an opportunity to demonstrate excellence.